So these savages, they like to talk about resource acquisition. That when you try to talk about morality when you're discussing like politics and like laws and stuff, they're like, I just want to talk about money. So even talking about money, you can make the argument that the Democrats provide a better economy. So when it comes to taxes, okay, Democrat states have higher tax rates than Republican states. Democrat counties have higher tax rates than Republican counties. Democrat cities have higher tax rates than Republican cities. So the cost of living in Democrat areas is higher than Republican areas. But taxes are talked about a lot. So the percentage different of your income being spent, the percentage difference of your income being spent on taxes. So in a, as you're paying 11 to 14% of your income on taxes a year, and in a Republican state it says 6 to 8%. And then when it comes to the cities, large Republican cities versus large Democrat cities, it goes to 14 to 18% in a Democrat city compared to 8 to 11% in a Republican city. Now, Republicans, okay, in Republican states, they do away with income tax. The Republicans also advocate to eliminate frivolous spending. Okay, look at what happened in Minnesota just now. Okay, fraud. Okay, fraud in government spending. The federal government froze funding to Minnesota for daycares because the state has been obviously committing fraud. So I looked at the tax rates for for major categories, comparing Democrat states and Republican states, and Democrat cities and Republican cities. And the Democrats have higher tax rates in all of these categories. Okay, the categories were income tax, sales tax, tax on gas, and property tax. So when the Democrats start talking about lower taxes, they're absolutely nonsensical. Now, it just brought up these four major categories, okay? And it gave me an overall estimate, of the percentage of income that goes towards taxes. So, not just income tax, but like with all these taxes included, how much of your income is spent on taxes. So yeah, when you talk about the economy, the Democrats lose. The Democrats lose in pretty much every argument that I can think of. So now if they start arguing about taxes, you have statistics to back you up that you pay less taxes in Republican areas. Okay. If they try to say something about cost of living, the cost of living is cheaper in Republican areas. Okay, if they start talking about like frivolous spending or something, it's obviously the Democrats engage in frivolous spending. They fund all kinds of nonsense. So, I mean, the Republicans had to come into office and create Doge. Okay. So it's just a bunch of stupidity. They're obviously just a bunch of criminals. Okay. The Democrats have a bad history. At least beginning in the Civil War era on, the Democrats have a bad history. They're still racist. They just switched who they're racist towards. And, I would say that they're still racist towards, like, just all around, but, and sexist, So yeah, it's just when the savages start talking about their precious resources, their precious money, okay, just you're going to be paying higher taxes with the Democrats. Okay, the cost of living's high in Democrat areas. Okay, they engage in frivolous spending. Um, so if they try to mention, oh, but there's a higher minimum wage, well, the difference between the cost of living of a red state and a blue state, or a red city and a blue city, and the minimum wage, okay? The the difference in the cost of living is greater than the difference in the minimum wage. So the higher minimum wage does not make up for the gap of the higher cost of living. So they're actually in a worse financial situation. Even though they have a higher minimum wage, the cost of living is so high that it doesn't make up for the higher cost of living. And on top of that higher cost of living, they have more taxes, okay? And, they're not safe. And I'm talking about not safe from crime. And, yeah, this is just a bunch of stupidity. So it's just obvious that these places vote Democrat because they profit off of crime, and they're just trying to get away with crime. So they ignore the taxes, they ignore the frivolous spending of the government and the corruption of the government. Okay, they ignore, the cost of living and all that stuff, because for some reason these psychopaths think that their crime or their manipulative business tactics, their intimidation tactics that they get away with in these Democrat societies, like, I guess they just think that that's going to make up for, all these other financial burdens, but they're stupid. So I recognize there are a lot of rich people that, profit off of crime and intimidation. Okay, a lot of rage baiters, criminals that become famous and stuff. Famous in their criminal communities, and that's a large community in the world. So, and so they depend on these Democrat policies of like gaslighting and corruption and all that stuff. So, but yeah, it's a bunch of stupidity. So when they talk about the economy, there are a lot of arguments that favor the Republican Party. You could talk about the global economy policies between the two parties, tariffs and global business practice, not outsourcing jobs to other nations, and making sure that we are a producer of products and resources and stuff. And there's all kinds of stuff that the Republicans are doing well on. And obviously, if these Democrats are so weak-minded to cave into the criminals, pander to the criminals here in our nation, they're obviously pandering to the criminals nationwide and the hostile governments. Okay, the savages don't care if their nation collapses. They'll just try to make some savage partnership with whoever takes over or something. Like, you're talking about traitors and just horrible people. So it's obvious when you're talking about the partnerships between the CAIR organization, CAIR, and these Democrat officials, and the anti-American rhetoric, and it's really dumb.